Welcome to episode 156 of the XS Noize Podcast. I'm Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I speak to Samuel T. Herring from Future Islands about their new album, People Who Aren't There Anymore. If you missed the previous episode, I spoke to Ed and Tom from Dream Rock 4-piece Juno Dream about their debut album, Pools of Colour. So check it out. And if you like the podcast, please subscribe on your favourite listening platform, give us a rating, and leave a comment. Future Islands released their 7th album, People Who Aren't There Anymore, on the 26th of January 2024. In this interview, frontman Samuel T. Herring talks about the writing and recording of the album, that amazing Letterman performance, and lots more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with Samuel T. Herring from Future Islands. So hi Sam, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I like to go back to the start with my guests. Can you remember the first band or artist that made you pay attention to music?
You know, I think I always go back to, like, when I think about the first tape I loved was Marvin Gaye when I was just a little kid. So it was like Marvin Gaye and the Temptations, the Supremes. And those were things that like hit me as a child because, you know, a lot of, for me, like the time you listen to music is driving to and from school in the morning. And my mom would always flip on the oldies station. Which at that time, and oldies are different now, 35 years later. Now it's Nirvana is oldies. But back then, you know, it was, my mom loved the Supremes and that kind of like early soul and R&B and even like bubblegum pop music from her childhood. So, and she loved to sing. And so that was kind of informative in a lot of different ways because it was like me connecting with my mom, me connecting with music, singing along with her, kind of learning the songs from her youth. But it's actually something that I feel has really influenced me in my singing, and that side of it that's more like the soulful side, but also kind of, you know, those love songs and like how to, you know, kind of encapsulate something very simply, you know, the goal to really make a universal song, a pop song. So yeah, later on in life, it was Coltrane. So when I was about 14, I got my first John Coltrane record. It was Blue Train. And that showed me something deeper inside myself that I think I realized with those early, like what I was just talking about. I mean, I remember listening to Sam Cooke and just being like hit with this heavy feeling at like 7 years old, but like not being like feeling a sad feeling, but that making me, I don't want to say happy, but making me, it just put me in touch with my emotions in a way that I didn't really understand what it was doing. And it was listening to Coltrane that really made me say like, oh, this is something inside of me. And like hearing a mournful, slow ballad from Coltrane and being like, it's more than the words. It's like the music. It's something more intrinsic. But that feeling of that solemnity and I don't know, just the depth of emotion that can come through in music and being like, this is something that it means more to me. It's more than just a song. It means something more.
Has music always been the career path that you wanted to follow, or did you have other ambitions growing up?
Not really. It's funny because I was reading a book just this morning that actually William got me, our bass player, a couple years back, and I never opened it. I've carried it around in my bag with me for a couple years, and I'm going to crack it. And I never did. And I finally did this morning. It's The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it was talking about the kind of personal, what did it say? Like the personal journey or the personal destiny, and how when we're kids, we know what we're supposed to do, but then life kind of intervenes. And it made me think about, what did I want to do when I was a kid? And I was like, well, first I wanted to be an astronaut, you know, of course. And then I remember when I was 6, I was like, I wanted to be an actor for a second. And then shortly after, like 7, I wanted to be a rock star. And I remember like begging my mom to spike up my hair for like, it was Halloween around school time, spike up my hair. And my brother had this toy guitar, you push the buttons and it makes a chord. And I remember taking that to school. So I was like, did I somehow manifest this? And I'm like, are they going to shoot me into space soon? And I didn't realize what I've done. But really, when I would say as I formed as a human, like 17, 18, my plan, my plan and my goals were more set around visual art. And that's what I wanted to go off to school for. That's what I went off to school for. It was a fine arts program. And I was really, when I was 17, I went to a special school in the summer in an arts program, and I was introduced to performance art. And that kind of took over my thinking my last year of high school and then going into college. And in a weird way, the plan that I had was go to school, get a degree, go out in the world, become an artist for 25, 30 years, practicing artist, and then go back and become a teacher. And that was the plan that I had at 18, going into school. And I thought I'd make music on the side because at the time I was, in high school, I was a rapper. That was my only musical, direction. And so I did want to go to school and find a producer to work with and make music, but it was not like a thing that not a thing that I expected, and it's funny because it took me, I think I was 35 when I put out my first full-length rap record. So it took me quite a while to get that part down. But yeah, within like two and a half years of school, I was failing out. And then I took myself out of school. And then basically it's kind of funny, like at 21 years old, I had squandered the dream that I had. And I shouldn't say dream, but the path was destroyed. And I had, and that was also at that time, like this was right before Future Islands, but me, William, and Gerrit, our previous band had just broken up. So it was kind of like I dropped out of school. The band broke up. My last remaining grandparent passed away. This is all at the end of 2005. And my life just kind of felt in a turmoil. And then turned the next year was, 5-6 months after our first band broke up. That's when Future Islands began. So, and it's just one of those funny things, like Future Islands was kind of we just put a band together because we had booked a tour as our old band and we forgot about it. And when the guys that we were supposed to be booking the tour for came calling in the January of the next year, instead of like being like, oh no, we forgot to book the tour, because they had booked us a tour when we were in their area in the previous year. So we were supposed to trade them back. Instead of saying we don't have a band anymore, we said we better write some songs and book some shows really fast. So Future Islands wasn't ever even really supposed to be a thing. Like it was just kind of thrown together slapdash. And we played some shows, and then some more shows came and some more shows came. And then everybody kind of went their separate ways for a year or two before we combined in Baltimore. And, and that's how life goes. Now it's coming up on 18 years, almost 18 years of those first kind of slapdash shows. And our very first recordings, recording in my buddy's shower. It's really hard to find our first EP for a reason, but if you do, you can actually hear the rings on the shower stall, because he was like, I think this would be a really good place to record your vocals because we have a nice natural reverb. And I kept hitting the curtain and like clink, clink, clink. But yeah, it's just funny the way things work.
That's exactly what I was about to say. And here you are now. We're about to talk about your 7th album, People Who Aren't There Anymore. It's an absolute banger. Really, really been enjoying it.
Thank you.
So when did it start?
Well, the funny thing about putting out records is there's always that down period in between when you're finishing the last one, waiting for it to come out, and you start getting really itchy. That's you can talk to any musician about it and they'll be like, how hard it is to basically, you spend 2 years making a record, and then by the time it comes out, you are so tired of it and I'm not saying that I'm tired of this record in the same way, because I think this record is still, I'm still understanding what it is, and the thing about this album is that for me personally, it comes from a lot of things that happened in my personal life, as a lot of Future Islands albums are. I feel really lucky that the guys allow me to put my own personal heart on my sleeve through our music, and allow the kind of journey to continue. Because in a weird way, that's kind of what Future Islands albums have become, is almost like this chronicle of our lives, but really personally my life and the things that I'm learning and relearning, my failures, my acceptances, my anger, my pain, and through the lens of growing older and maturing and understanding things differently. But this record in 2020, I hate to even talk about 2020 because it's such a rough year and nobody wants to hear about the pandemic anymore. But I came back to Baltimore the beginning of March of 2020, and I was with my partner at the time in Sweden, and then in England with her. I came back to finish mixing As Long As You Are, and then the lockdown happened, a week after I got home, and then I didn't see her for 6.5 months. Because of the lockdown, the borders between the U.S. and Sweden, the U.S. and Europe, we couldn't see each other. So there were a lot of them. I know everybody went through their own special, I was going to say special kind of hell. That's kind of a special hell, back on itself, bending back on itself. But for me personally, I was going through this trying time with my partner, who we were engaged. We had all these plans to be together that year, to get married, and then we didn't know if we would see each other again. We didn't know what this thing was, if it would let up, if the borders would change, and that began the beginning of the albums. The first song on the record that we wrote was Deep in the Night, which was written around July of 2020, and then towards the end of that year. So at this point, As Long As You Are is mixed, but it's not out yet. And we also didn't have any reason to put it out, but we eventually decided just to get it out there because we didn't want to sit on the emotions, and we wanted to move forward to the next phase. And also we wanted to share something with people that were stuck at home. It's kind of like, we're just sitting on this so we can kind of capitalize on it eventually. And then it's like, well, maybe people really need it. Maybe people need some of our, the people that really care about what we do, maybe they would appreciate this music at this time. So we put out the record. But so Deep in the Night was written July, August. I think King of Sweden came around the end of 2020. And then, around that time, I finally got back to Sweden. It's tricky because the thing about the record is that there's these songs that we wrote, Deep in the Night, King of Sweden, The Tower, which are all those early days of the pandemic. I think The Tower was the third song we wrote, or in that first year of the pandemic. And there are all these kinds of songs about the person in the distance. I see you when I turn out the lights. I turn on the lights, you're not there. I'm waiting on the other side. And all these songs to me at the time when I wrote them, fast forward to end of 2021, pandemic is over in quotations. And I'm finally able to get back to Sweden. I've got my residency. Me and my ex got an apartment, and then I got back and then we split up. This is actually, we're about 2 days away from that day. And so there's all these emotions. Like I said, there's all these emotions that I'm still understanding. I'm still understanding timelines. But the crazy thing about going through this whole period is that upon looking back at those early songs, Deep in the Night, King of Sweden, The Tower, I thought that they were love songs, just like I'm waiting and I'm strong and I'm on my way. And, I'm going to be there in the end. I'm going to find you. And then now in retrospect, they're really songs pleading for someone to stick around, pleading for someone to remember that there's love. And that doesn't just go one way. That time for both of us was so hard. You have to really disassociate when you're away from someone for so long to like hide the really heavy feelings and to hold on to hope. And sometimes you get there in the end. I mean, that's what the tower is so much about, is the internal dialogue. I tell myself it's okay when it's not. I tell myself that it's dark outside when it's so bright, and I try to remind myself, I try not to lie to myself about what's happening, or to lie to myself to hold on to the hope. It's really those internal dialogues being away. And with people who aren't there anymore, there is this kind of, it's not necessarily, actually the album is almost chronological, not quite. Upon getting back from Sweden and trying to say, how do I understand the last 5 years of my life with this person, and how do I close this? How can I understand these things? The songs that came very quickly after that. It was, I got back and I immediately wrote The Sickness, which is kind of the encapsulation of all the things I was feeling, and feeling like the things that pull us apart were out of our control. And then wrote The Fight, which is, that thing that we have to keep pushing forward. And, so much of these songs are for people, and they're really for myself too. And then what's the other one? Oh, Corner of My Eye, which is
that's my favorite song on the album.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. That Corner of My Eye really goes back to a time when we were writing our third album, On the Water. I was really interested with trying to be like as succinct and plaintive as possible. I had just probably around, that album came out in 2011. I think around 2009 or 10, I had just kind of discovered Daniel Johnston and loved how he could just say like, I love you in a song in this childlike naivete, and how it could be so arresting and emotional, like the most simple words, the cliche. It's not even a cliche. It's just like, it's the bare honest truth. It's like, this is how I feel. I love you. And I was like, how do you say that? Like who gave you the right to be so, to hit me in my heart right now? And then I was like, well, why can't I do that? Why does the thing have to be wrapped into poetry? And I think Corner, which was the last of that trio of The Sickness, The Fight, and Corner of My Eye, was the, just the truth. I once had a friend and we had a home. And now I can't go back. Isn't it sad? Like I had this piece and now I can't go there. Like there's this whole world that I'll never see again. That's what hits, that's like what hits me. But yeah, this record is really wrapped around those kinds of two poles, which is, I don't want to say the beginning of the pandemic, but, in retrospect, it's kind of the beginning of really feeling distance. When you're a musician who tours, as we have over the last, 12, 15 years, we really hit the road in 2008. So yeah, 15, 16, coming on 16 years, you have to make certain concessions in your life, sacrifices. You deal with distance and pain from your partners, from yourself, disassociations. And these things cause their own like traumas, they cause their own fears that kind of compound over time. And I think not only were those early songs truly love songs, and the belief, they really were, but I think, in retrospect, they were kind of accepting an end already. And that's what I thought when thinking about this record. Like I said, I'm still wrapping my head around it because of my own personal life. I've really thought that it kind of begins in the middle, or towards the end of one thing, instead of being kind of a completed journey where we set out on a journey and then we completed at the end. It kind of begins in this really hard place and kind of comes to the end in the middle. And then there's turmoil. And then there's kind of a new birth in the end, which I don't really feel like we've done that before. But it is like I said, it's the difference between creating an album that's a group of songs and then an album that's actually just your life, that is literally, this is the journey that I went on. And this is where you found us in it. This is where it began and this is where this ended. And now, there's already been songs written since, the last song. The last song was The Garden Wheel that we wrote, which is a song that I really love because it's the epilogue to everything, and it's what happened after all of that, seeing the world after all of this. Now I see the world in a different way. Now every stone has a face, every leaf there's a bead of sweat on its the drops its embrace. Like those things, and that's what we get. That's what we get in life are these realizations. Unfortunately, sometimes over and over. We're like, I already learned this. I don't want to learn this again. Like, come on, give me a break.
Did you find it when you were writing the songs, after everything you've been through with splitting up with your partner and the whole pandemic thing, did you find writing the songs therapeutic?
Always, yeah. Yeah. And that kind of therapy, the therapy of music writing it has different stages though too, because I think that original like exorcism of an emotion is to just like put it on a page so that you can see it. Writing has always been that for me, or something I realized that it was kind of taking that garbled mess that's in our mind and in our hearts and putting it on a page and then making sense of it. Especially if you're working in an improvisational field or free writing style, you just write and then you're like, that's what that means, or that makes sense in this way. We apply those lessons to ourselves. And that's like one step, but really the next step, which is going to be, I'm thinking about the tour on this record is going to be very intense because I'm going to be singing these songs for the first time. And that's when the real kind of therapy for me occurs, because it's no longer this inward thing. And, you do share the songs, you record them and you put them out on a record, but it's a lot different when you're looking in or hundreds of people's faces and you're telling them. And I found this with a few of the songs. Like we started playing Corner of My Eye, the end of 2022. We played it live 6 or 7 times, played it a couple times live this year. And man, that hit me so hard, to say those words, to say those simple things that are so hard to really, you have to accept them. It's kind of like its own, in therapy, you kind of have to you're accountable to your therapist. You're like, do I tell them the shit I got into this week? Oh man, I'm embarrassed. And then you actually try to live a better life because you're like, they're not a cop, they're not my parent, it's like, yeah, but I, feel an accountability, it's like telling your friend the dumb things that you do over and over. And then they're like, why do you keep doing that? Why do you keep hurting yourself? I don't like when you hurt yourself. And so you kind of have that moment live with people where you tell 1,000 people these things, and then you have to start living by that rule yourself. You have to start accepting those things yourself and accepting the truth that you've laid out, because at that point it is I don't know. It manifests itself in a way too, like I imagine playing the fight, just that I will keep fighting, that, like I've said before, and I've said in interviews for years, these songs are not just for people. They're also for me, and I have to write those words so that I keep fighting, so that I keep going and I don't give in to my dark feelings. And there's a difference between like going through your sadnesses, going through your turmoils, And like I think it's important to go into dark places, but it's a difference between accepting them and giving into them and letting them take over and just be like, that's what's right. I mean, that's so much of my life, and just dealing with depression and suicidal ideation and these kinds of things, it's just a part of life. So I think for me, it's always been really, that's like music has saved me in a lot of ways. And that's through the audience. It's not only through what it's given me, but the audience gives me purpose. The music gives me purpose, but then the audience gives me purpose, past like that friendship, past the friendship of me and my friends. There's this whole other thing that we experience with the audience. And that kind of sharing is accepted, like as that audience remains, as they continue, our supporters, like continuing to be there and care about what we do, is to continue to tell us like that we matter and that we mean something. And so that sharing becomes tantamount to that, continuing to share and giving them a lot of ourselves.
Well, Future Islands music always touches the human. You always deal with human condition and emotion. So I can see this album really resonating with the fans. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. It's when I was talking to my parents the other day, and they're like, "Oh, people are really liking the new songs." Like, they're like, it's sad, but they're like saying, online that it's terrible that Sam went through a breakup, but it's all the best, all the better for them. They're going to get this amazing music, and I'm like, well, it is kind of sad. I told myself years ago to, stop mining these things, but it is, it's such a part of the practice of what we do. And I do feel like Future Islands is that thing that has become what it's about. You know what I mean? It's like that expression and that honesty is, and the storyline, it's funny to think about it as characters, but when I look back at now 7 albums, it is like the characters, if you were to write a set of books or something, it's so many of the same, the same places and people from the past popping up and the near distant, or the near past and the distant past and the now. But because it's all in that universal language that I strive for, at least. I definitely throw in some stuff that is maybe a little bit poetic at times, but that's also me. So it's all part of it.
Well, Future Islands broke through in 2014 with your 4th album, Singles. What do you think of when you look back at that period of craziness when it just all blew up?
It's actually sad because I don't know if I remember it so well, and it's something I've talked about recently, because when I was going through that time, there was a big spotlight on the band. We'd been doing that. We'd been making music together, me, William, and Gerrit for, I guess, was that 02, 03? So 11 years at that point, and with Future Islands for 8 years, And we had kind of given up on this idea that we would, reach this place, that we would kind of be a spotlight band, that we would have a big break or a breakout. But we were very accepting of the fact of where we were, that we had kind of built this thing on our backs and through, independent labels that supported us, Upset the Rhythm in London and Throw Jockey in Chicago, and then getting the step up to go to 4AD. We thought that it was a step up, but it was just going to kind of help what we were already doing. Like we were already, paying our bills. We didn't have to work second jobs by that time. Although, when I think a year after Letterman happened, I was cleaning my room and I found an old bank statement from a week and a half before Letterman. And it was like $120 in my bank account. And I was just remembering like, oh yeah, I was dead broke. I didn't have, but I knew that there was a record coming, you know what I mean? And I knew once I got back on the road, I'd be fine. So it was still a time, right before that, it was still a time of just being an artist, and working week to week, month to month, and getting by, but being in a place where I did the thing that was my dream, which was to live off of my art, and doing that with my two best friends, So it was all kind of a crazy thing. In 2014 is when Mike, our drummer, came into the fold for the first time, and he brought a new energy with him. But for us, like, we were just working, we worked as hard as we had that year, 2014 and 2015. I think we played over 300 shows on that album over those 2 years. And so by the end of it, we were hitting the wall really hard. But I remember early on playing some festivals, because we got a lot of looks at festivals that had never given us a chance on their lineups. And, we would meet artists who were 10, 15, 20 years older than us, who would, seek us out or would, we'd bump into, and they would know who we were. And basically, I heard more than a few people say to me, enjoy this time. Don't take it for granted, because it only happens once, and then it won't happen again, basically. And they were absolutely right. And I didn't have the time to not take it for granted. I didn't have the time to enjoy this kind of thing. I mean, I saw it happen. I felt it happen, but I also felt it in my bones. I felt it in my knees. I felt it in my voice. I damaged my voice really bad in 2015 because of all the touring. My knee, I also retore my ACL in 2015. And we just kept going. There was because it was that old ethos, the DIY ethos we came from. You can't take a day off, you can't stop, or you lose money, you lose momentum. And we can't afford that, but we could, and that was the big thing, was like the adapting after those years. But in the midst of it, we were just working. I mean, I remember being so mad that year that I didn't know what I had or where I was going or what was happening. It was just kind of a whirlwind. And you just had to do it. And I, for me, I still thought I had $100 in my bank. You know what I mean? Just like, I remember yelling at our manager, who's been with us forever. He's like a part of the family. And I was yelling at him at the end of 2014, like, where's the money? I've been working so hard this year. And he was just like, you guys you just have to pay yourselves. I was like, oh, like Gerrit has the money? Gerrit, I need $20. I'm hungry. I want to buy some shoes. But this kind of thing was, we didn't really know what was happening. It was just all happening to us and at us. And I mean, I think if we'd have been younger, when we wanted that kind of, there was a time when we were 25 and 26 that we really wanted this kind of big explosion, and it didn't come. And there were a couple of years of bitterness and envy and jealousy. And then there was the calm acceptance that, oh, we're doing fine, and we did it on our own. And there was a pride in that. And then this happened. So I can't even imagine what it would have been if I was 25 or 26. I mean, if I was 21, I probably would be dead, unfortunately. I mean, I'd be honest, like with my drug problems at the time, if I could have hit up Gerrit for $100 every day, Gerrit would be like, I'm not giving you any more money. But, being able to, I mean, that in a way that was a blessing, because we were able to really grow organically for 4 whole records. I was able to get through a lot of my, not all of my issues. I still have my issues, but getting through a really self-destructive period of my life before having that, that kind of exposure, I think really did us well. Because now we're just like, we're coming up on 40 now. Letterman was a week or 2 before my 30th birthday.
That was the first time I seen you guys, and it just blew me away. And I still watch it regularly. It's fantastic. Awesome. It's a fantastic performance. Probably the best performance I've ever seen on Letterman or any live TV show.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Mark. Yeah, I mean, we didn't know what that was going to be. And it's pretty amazing that people are still referencing it and people are still watching it. because
It's those moves. How do you do those? I've tried to do those moves.
I can't do it anymore. I can't quite do it anymore. The torn ACL really messed me up. It took away some of those deep squats.
Yeah, I've tried to do that. I just can't get so
hurt yourself. Well, see, you guys don't really do baseball over there. They're all baseball moves. That's the secret.
That's the secret.
Yeah, watch a game. Check out the shortstop. That's where I got all of it from. Being a shortstop when I was 9 to 12 years old.
I like to ask my guests the following questions. If you could go back and relive one musical moment from your career, what would it be?
Oh boy, man, you got me like I'm like was about to reach for my phone. I'm trying to think of I think for us and for our fans, there's like iconic Future Island shows, but they're the ones that are recorded. I mean, honestly, I'd like to know what happened at Letterman because I kind of just blacked out. But I feel like it's more special than that. I would like to go back to our thousandth show because I would like a redo. It was a long day in the sun, and I think I had a bit too much to drink. It was maybe a little stumbly.
Where was it?
That was in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, or I guess Carborough proper. It was just so many friends and family. It was just a really beautiful, beautiful day. Man, there's so many shows. I'd like to go back to Athens, Greece. We played this terraced backyard in a place called like 200 Dogs. I think it was 200 Dogs. Maybe it was 2 Dogs. Anyways, man, you got me going way back in my head. I want to go back to Porto. I want to go back to Ivy Gardens. There's so much. I would like to do the Hollywood Bowl again. We got to play the Hollywood Bowl only once, opening for Grace Jones. And I want another shot. I think I could do better this time. Also, I want to go back to when we played Red Rocks and opened for Morrissey because that's where I tore my ACL. I don't want to do that move I did. I was trying to impress him like I actually thought he was watching. He wasn't watching.
I'm surprised he was there.
I was too. It wasn't until we went off stage that I was like, I think he's actually going to play. I was like, wow, we made it like the whole for a month and a half. We're like, do you think? I don't know. And then it was like day of the show, like, do you think his band's sound checking? Maybe. And then we got off stage. I was like, I think I did my ankle, or I think I did my knee in, but I think he's going to play. Hobbling around like to see the show.
If people want to understand Future Island's music, what are the 5 songs they should listen to?
You. Matt, now you got me reaching for my phone. Wow, I feel like I'm going to go way back because I want to say, well, no, maybe I'd take that away. I'm going to say "Give Us the Wind," which is from our 3rd album. But also, I kind of want to go with "On the Water," which is the title track from that same album. Give Us the Wind because it's just the anthem of the band, and that belief that, leaving home and I mean, it is the story of the band, and kind of our loved ones that we leave behind are the people that actually are our strongest supporters, and kind of will us forward because of that belief and because of what I was talking about before, like being accountable, like you're going to go after something and those people really believe in you. It kind of, you're like, I have to do it. I have to make it. Oh man, I'm going to have to say, I don't know. I'm going to have to say Little Dreamer just because it is a song that's been with us for so long. And I'm going to say, and I think it still speaks to the songs that we write today. You can easily draw a line between Little Dreamer and Deep in the Night. And then I'm going to have to say Tin Man just because of what it did for us. What it did for us early on. I remember writing that song and being like, this is like new, this is going to do it. And that album for us in Evening Air, our 2nd album, it really propelled us in a way that we'd hoped for, but didn't expect, at a time when we really needed a win. And it's on such a smaller level in comparison to like what singles did, but where we went from where we were before singles to singles was the same jump that we experienced on a smaller level, but the same exponential jump from Wave Like Home to An Evening Air. And Tin Man was really the centerpiece of that, and really kind of the early Rage. One of the last songs of real Rage, I would say, in that period. And then I have to go with Seasons because of what's, similarly what Seasons did for us. And just continuing to be an anthem for people, even though A Dream of You and Me is the best song on that album. I'm just saying, that's just my belief. Oh man, I'm running out of room here. I mean,
that's it. I think that was 5, was it?
It's close enough.
Yeah. The reason I ask is because I normally make a playlist of the 5 tracks, you see, and that's why I ask.
Oh, okay. I feel like I got to give you something more recent.
What song on the new album means the most to you?
Okay, cool. I'm going to go with Peach.
Yeah, it's a great track.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's go with one of the already released songs. Let's go with Peach. Because to me, that's kind of an encapsulation of a lot of things that I personally try to sing about, going up against darkness and holding on. And I love that song. It's a perfect little pop tune for me.
Just a couple more, Sam. For us music fans, music is the soundtrack to our memories. What song or album, when you listen to it, brings back the best memories for you?
Best memories. Oh man, all the best memories are the saddest ones. Isn't that messed up? That messed up? I don't know. I mean, big records for me are. I'm going to give you 3 because I'm not good at this. I'm not good at boiling down. But
3's good.
The Rachel's Music for Egon Schiele. That record will forever make me transcend my body. I got to go with. That's a good one too. Yola Tango and then Nothing Turned Itself Inside Out. That record reminds me of one of the first crazy journeys of my life that I'll never forget. And that's for another album I haven't written. And then I'm going to go with John Coltrane, Ballads. And that's a record that I probably own 4 or 5 copies of, and I've bought another 10 that I've just given to friends over the years. It's one of those records that I buy whenever I see it in a used bin because somebody needs it. And that record puts me in a place of my youth, on a beautiful sunny day in Hamlet, North Carolina. And yeah, another day I won't forget.
You've been famous for a long time now. What's the stupidest thing you've ever bought?
Stupidest thing I've ever bought. I bought a lot of dumb stuff. I mean, putting my money in the stock market, that's pretty dumb. Lost a lot of money. Probably it's kind of a tricky one because I loved that car so much, but after the Farfield touring, and it was another record where we did nearly 300 shows and hit the wall, and I hadn't had any time to spend any money. I bought myself a car. It was a Audi A8L, which is like their top of the line, but it was 10 years old, and it was, I think I talked them down to like 14 grand, but it was by far the most expensive thing I ever bought. And I immediately just started to have to put like $2,000 into it every month or two for the next 3 or 4 years. And it just became a money pit of a car. And in the end, so what happened was, I guess it was okay for like a year, but then about a year after I got it, it got stolen. And whoever stole it is really funny because I don't really take good care of my cars and things. So I think when it got stolen, it was full of like fast food bags and, old mail and all this stuff. And eventually, it was gone for about 2 months, and it turned up at a junkyard. The kids had rode in it, and then wrecked it, and then it was picked up by the city and taken to this junkyard. So I go to find it, and there's blunt roaches, and basically it just smelled like so much weed. And I was kind of jealous because it had been years since I was a weed smoker, and I was like, man, I could have smoked weed in my really nice car, listening to music, and I didn't even get to enjoy it. But these kids had literally like cleaned and vacuumed the inside of my car. The only trace of anything like, trash was blunt roaches. And I was like, this is so funny that these kids stole my car and then cleaned it. But anyways, after it was wrecked, they jammed it up on they basically busted up one side of the car on a curb or something, and it jammed the vents for the sunroof. And so for 2 years I had to like vacuum water out of the front passenger seat of my car. And sometimes I'd come home from tour after being away 3 months, and there'd be 3-4 inches of water. And there'd be mold on the seat belts, and just smelling. And I was like, well, I'm only here for a week, So I'd go and, get the car fixed, to put another grand in it and to take the water out, and just like try to think. It's funny because it looked really nice on the outside. On the inside, it was like an aquarium. Anyways, it wasn't the thing that I bought. Wasn't the dumb part. It was the fact that I kept refixing it. I should have gotten rid of it so fast. Now I don't have a car anymore. None
at all. No wonder.
No, I gave that thing away to charity, which also seems mean. I'm like, here's an aquarium. But they auctioned it, made some money, so that's good.
Looking ahead, Sam, what's next for Future Islands in terms of creative projects or future endeavors after the release of people who aren't there anymore?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sitting on some songs. I've got about 2.5, 3 songs written. That's kind of the next go, but who knows if those songs will make the next record. I can't really say what the band will do. Everybody's kind of in their own, that's kind of what the album title speaks to, is that understanding that, things do change and we're changing. We aren't the people that we used to be. And we're not around each other as much anymore, outside of touring. I'm living down in New Orleans, William's out in Los Angeles, and Mike and Gerrit are still in Baltimore, but Gerrit's a dad now, and my legs hurt. I mean, I want to always just be making music, but you always come to these weird times as a musician, especially around an album release, where you just kind of say, can I do this anymore? Like, is there another record? And, usually, I can't say what the future will bring, but usually about 4 or 5 months later, you're sitting on 4 or 5 more songs. And then you're like, oh, I guess there is another record. So I imagine that things will just keep rolling, because it's really hard to change who you are. Yeah. That's a Future Islands lesson right there. It's very hard to change who you are, and who we are is, are musicians, and we, this is what we do. So as much as like I'm struggling to write at the minute, I don't find myself extreme. I was trying to write some yesterday. I'm kind of working. I don't like to use the term writer's block, but I'm slightly uninspired at the moment and just trying to live life. And that's the thing too, accepting life, like living life is, you have to live life if you're going to write about it. You know what I mean? So I'm here for the living.
Well, Sam, that's me done. Thank you very much for taking the time and taking a bit longer. Really
for sure,
appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Love the album. All the best of luck with it. And hopefully there'll be a tour maybe next year or the year after. Hopefully you come back to Ireland.
Oh, yeah, we'll be back. Don't worry. Don't you worry. We don't stay away for too long.